So yes, we'll stand our ground. We won't be pushed around. We must keep you from putting our kids in the ground. So we can't stand down. No, we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't stand down, brother. So we'll stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. 'Cause we know what's right. And we got plenty of fight. And if you think you're gonna keep pushing us around, well, you'll lose that crown. 'Cause we won't back down. We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've got to stand our ground. And no, we won't back down. You know, it's pretty clear. If these lunatics think they have the right to strip us of our rights of self-defense, and if they're willing to do that, what else are they willing to do? We won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. No, we won't back down. I won't back down, baby. There ain't no easy way out. We can't back down, brother. We've got to stand our ground. So we won't back down. No, we won't back down. Virginians, you won't fight this fight alone.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight. Welcome. If you're new here, please consider liking, subscribing. For those of you that are already subscribed, thank you so much. My name is Pat Webb. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of Virginia Citizens Defense League, and we've got Philip Van Cleve, VCDL's president, and Jill McDaniel, our Academy Director. So we were hoping to have Evan Todd on tonight, and apparently he's having some technical difficulties. So we're going to catch everyone up on what's going on in Virginia and around the country in 2A news. And hopefully Evan will be joining us shortly.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on as usual. Right now, everything is moving in all different kinds of directions. We're seeing movement in the courts some more. Some good, some bad. It's not all good, but there's a lot of good going on in the courts. We're just going to have to see how this plays out. One of the recent things that came up was the Supreme Court decided not to do cert. Uh, when they do cert, they're basically saying that they only actually hear a certain number of cases in a year. They just got a fixed number of slots that they allocate, and they got all these cases coming in: abortion and guns and you name it, immigration. It's all there, and so they look at these and decide which of those they think is important enough or urgent enough to take up one of those slots. Now, if they see something they don't like or something that they want to put to rest, then they can give cert, which means now they'll hear the case and they'll make a ruling on it, which could go with the case or could go against it. Um, the fact that they don't give cert to a case doesn't mean they agree with the case. Because when they don't do that, what that means is the lower court's ruling gets to stand. So if a lower court ruling, like in New York with their concealed handgun permit law, which was a mess, some of that was struck down by a lower court, some of it was upheld, and that mixture went up to the Supreme Court, and they declined to give it cert. So for now, the lower court, the Second Circuit ruling on that law stands. So some of the things they struck down that stands. Some of the things they say that they can ban guns, they can in certain areas, and they can require that you show you've got good moral character, which is ridiculous that you let anybody have a subjective standard like that. But that's all standing now because the Supreme Court didn't give it cert. Doesn't mean the Supreme Court says, yeah, I like this. This is good. That we believe in this. It just means that when they looked at the overall situation, they didn't see it to be egregious enough for them to take and hear that and put it in one of the precious few cert slots for this year. But for now, it stands, and that's not good. It would have been better if they took it from our point of view. But people that are on other issues are, they'd feel the same way about their issues. So that's one of the latest things, and that one was disappointing. But there are more cases that maybe that they'll be hearing at some point in the future here. One of which would be the assault weapon ban in Maryland. That's one of the key ones we're keeping our eyes open on, and we'll see what happens with that. But so that's what's happening kind of in the federal courts right now. But stuff is going on all over the place. The BATF under new leadership is doing some things that we're really watching that could be wonderful. That could be just really good. There were a couple cases that they were fighting against, GOA and us and the other gun rights organizations on. Like the pistol brace ban, that was one that they were fighting on. And they basically told the courts, put the brakes on this. We, the government, want to rethink our position on pistol braces. And that's a good sign, because before their position was clear. They thought it was something that was, it made your gun into a short-barreled rifle. But now they're not sticking to that. They're saying we want to rethink this. That's a big deal. The fact that they did that, and I think that's a great sign that they will come back and do something with, hopefully just say that these pistol braces are legal. They're not short-barreled rifles, and then be done with that. So we're watching that. All they're also rethinking. They're engaged in the business. We all know what a mess that was. And of course, as a VCDL member, if you're an actual member, not just somebody on VA alert, but you're a paying dues paying member, you're protected from the government going after you under that ruling, if you will, about being engaged in the business because maybe you sold a gun and made a profit, and they want to come after you as a dealer. Hopefully they'll back away and just say, no, we disagree with the old thing. We don't believe we want to go back to the old system where they had to show you were truly engaged in the business of actually making money and counting upon that income. So we'll see what happens, but those things are good to hear, and something I wasn't sure we'd ever hear. Now, if our Attorney General Miares here in Virginia would just do something like that and start rethinking the state's positions on things that we're fighting the state on, like universal background checks, and one handgun a month. Clearly, those things are unconstitutional. If he would start doing that, then we could also start moving things more quickly here in Virginia. So that's some of the stuff going on.
Absolutely. So, going back to the court case that you mentioned in the first place, and that good character clause, that's something that was used when um, gun permits, whether they be concealed carry permits or just a permit to buy or a permit to carry in general, were first dreamt up as a way to keep undesirable people from having firearms. And who were these undesirable people? Well, they were minorities. They were freed slaves that were trying to defend themselves against attacks by the KKK, um, immigrants, people that were just a little bit different from the average judge or the average law enforcement or whatever. So all of these things are based in racial prejudice, and these permitting schemes are all to prevent people from being able to lawfully defend themselves.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
it used to be it was minorities. But let's face
Mhm.
it, nowadays, if you're a law-abiding gun owner, you are somebody they want to keep the gun out of your hands. You're the person whose hands they say that guns shouldn't be in. They want
Right.
you to believe they're talking about criminals. They're not. They're talking about you and me. We are the wrong hands for them, and so they're using this. And as you're saying, Pat, it's subjective.
Mhm.
What you might call somebody having good moral character, somebody else might totally disagree with you.
Right.
And the point is, with it subjective, how do you argue with that? How you have no concrete thing you can point to say, no, this person is of a good moral character because there's nothing defined there. And that's intentional. This is not a mistake. This is not stupidity. It's evil. And that's what they're up against.
Well,
And
it does
believe
two things. It first off, it disarms the public because they make these permitting schemes. It costs money to get the permit. You have to jump through several hoops. You have to go and renew it every however many it is in your state. In Virginia, it's every 5 years. But it they also start incrementally saying, okay, well, you can't carry here and you can't carry there and you can't leave it in your car without doing this, that, and the other. And they make it so cumbersome to actually carry these tools of self-defense that people just throw up their hands, they hope, and say, well, I'm just not going to bother.
right. They
And
can say, you've got your Second Amendment. Nobody's taking it away from you. You just
right,
don't want to use it. We've got
right.
the chance if you want it.
They go and
Uh,
they fearmonger with it too, and they push propaganda. I mean, look what happened in 2020 when we had Lobby Day, and then we had such a turnout, and then afterwards it was like an onslaught of fearmongering that women were too weak and too stupid to even carry a gun. All, and then all of this other. you know, building blocks to that propaganda was, what if the guy's bigger than you and they take the gun away?
Right.
Like, well, I mean, if you train and you get out there and you do what you're supposed to and you take up the education that's available to you, that you won't have to worry about them
My
taking it
my my answer to that is I'll take my
away.
chances. I'll
Yeah,
take
I
my
mean,
chances.
it's a 50-50 right there, and I'd rather be on the upper
Mhm.
end of that 50s. But I mean, it's unbelievable. It's not surprising anymore, especially when you work in it, but it is unbelievable that so many of these other organizations that we combat every day just come up with some of the such baloney, um as far as what our rights are. I mean, these are our rights. These are inalienable. They were bestowed upon us. However you figure that out, or however you believe that you have
But
these rights,
tyrants don't
just
care about that. Tyrants don't
Right.
care
exactly,
about that. And these people are
exactly,
tyrannical. They want
yeah,
their way. If they don't like guns, then you are not allowed to have them because they don't like them. That's a
yeah,
tyrant. And these
yeah,
people think that way. I see, by the way, Daniel Farnsworth said, he pointed, and you quoted it, Pat.
Mhm.
Permits are not shown to reduce crime. And that's
Well,
true because it's gun control. Gun
yeah,
control doesn't reduce crime, period.
I I guarantee you the criminals are not going out there and getting permits, and they are
no,
concealing their guns.
Hmm.
So it's not the people with the permits that you have to worry about. But we hear it every year in almost every committee meeting. Philip and I hear the anti rights people saying, well, if you carry a gun, it's going to get taken away from you and used against you. So you're safer without the gun. And the statistics prove otherwise. As a matter of fact, recent statistics have shown that mass murders in places where self-defense is not banned, the private citizens stop the mass murders more frequently than law enforcement.
yep,
I remember early in the early days when we went to Norfolk City Hall to try to urge them to let us carry in their parks back before we had full preemption that we got just shortly thereafter. And I was being interviewed by a reporter down there, and she came up to me and she goes, "Well," and she saw I had my gun on, was open carry, and she says, "Well, what if somebody takes that gun away from you?" I said, "Why don't you try and take that gun away from me?" And her eyes got really big. She never thought about it. Well, okay, what would I do? She says, well, would you fight back? Oh, I said, oh, yeah, yeah. You would be basically trying to murder me. So, yeah, I'm going to fight back pretty severely. You're going to certainly end up with a broken something or other if you're still alive. So she looked at me. She's okay. Well, let's move on. Um,
I thought you were gonna say, well, if you take that one away from me, I'm just gonna use this other one I have.
That too.
no, yeah, there's always that.
I just got the bigger one in my back pocket.
Uh,
Yeah, I certainly had a lot of fun with reporters, like the one that was interviewing me one time at a restaurant back before when we had to open carry in restaurants that served alcohol in the old days. That was the one that she looked at me and she goes, "We were getting ready, we were prepping for the interview. The camera guy was getting set up. We'd already been talking like 10 minutes, and she looks at me. She goes, "You have a concealed carry permit, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I do." And she says, "Oh, wow, okay. So you could have a gun in your car." I said, "Well, yeah, yeah. As a matter of fact, I could." And she said, "Oh, wow. So like if you had a gun in your car, you could bring it in here." I said, "Yeah, you mean like this?" And I showed her my open carry gun that she didn't notice.
right.
You know. So you kind of have fun with reporters, but that actually is a good way for people to learn something, but something dramatic like that, like when I told the reporter, "Why don't you take my gun away from me?" It makes them think hard about something. They're not just asking a question without thinking about what the answer would be. Oh, see, Bill Osby, I'm late, but I'm here. Well, thank you, Bill. Glad you're here.
Welcome, welcome.
Yes. Yeah. So there's other things going on as well. Philip, do you want to talk about for the people that aren't up to speed? What's happening with gun laws in Virginia? Is anything changing July 1st?
Yeah,
2020?
actually, there's one thing that's changing on July 1st, and that is you'll be able, assuming that there's enough funds that each year they have to refund this, but if you buy a gun safe or something of that nature from any dealer, any retailer, you'll be able to write off up to $300 for that safe off your taxes. So we've had this in place, but only if you bought from an FFL. And quite frankly, FFLs don't have the inventory of safes. They may have a lot of guns, but they don't generally sell a whole lot of safes and have a huge selection. But a lot of retail stores have some very big selections on safes. So that's a positive thing. The governor pretty much vetoed all the bad stuff. So there's really nothing to speak of this year. But this is an election year, and boy, if we didn't have him in place, we were looking at some really evil stuff, trying to turn Virginia into California East. We need to make damn sure that never happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna. Oh, here it is. I just refresh my own memory. Again, on the VCDL website, we now have the General Assembly 2025 voting record. So I've tabulated every single vote on guns that every single legislator did this session. If they voted in subcommittee, if they voted in full committee, if they voted on the floor, if they anywhere we could get their vote, every single vote counted. And the results are, well, kind of saw this coming. Just looking at colors, even if you can't read, whoops, that may not work very well with these backgrounds. I was doing good till it got too close. Anyhow, if you look at this, is available on the website. If you go up there under politics, you'll see the General Assembly voting record, and then you'll see the 2025. In the Senate, for example, the red which is Republican, dominated the whole top of the chart, and everything blue was below that. In other words, every Republican tremendously outvoted the Democrats. To give you an idea, there are in the Senate, all but 3 Republicans had 100% voting record. They voted for gun rights every single time, and some of them had got a lot of votes, and they did it every single time. And only 3 were below 100%. 2 of those had 97%, and 1 had 90%. So, so you say, okay, so that's the Republicans. So the Republicans in the Senate went from 100 to 90, a vast majority at 100, almost all of them at 100% perfect voting records. So you might ask, by the way, who was the top Republican in the Senate? That was Senator Mark Peake. He was at the very, very top. However, there's a cluster of like 5 of them that are just, I mean, they're if a senator stepped out of a committee and a vote came up and he wasn't there, then he didn't get a vote, so it doesn't count on here as a vote. So just stepping out to use the restroom at the wrong time could mean that you may get 1 less vote than somebody else. But Mark Peake was at the top, and then Ryan McDougal came in second, right one little point below Peake. Richard Stewart, another great senator, 120. Emily Jordan came in at 100%, and William Stanley and Mark Obenshain. Senator Obenshain's usually at the top. He's usually number 1. So this is a little unusual, but again, he's got a 100% voting record. He just didn't, for whatever reason, he was in another committee presenting one of his bills when a bill came up, so he wasn't there, whatever the reason was. But these are all 100%, and you have to kind of give them all credit for that. So what was the top Democrat in the Senate? You ready for this? The top one was boy, it's a tough name to spell, but to pronounce, Serena Vinison, I guess it is. He has a 3%, no, not 90%, not 100%, 3%. And he was the best Democrat in the House and the Senate, 3%.
Hmm.
Then there were like looks like about 9 or 10 2 percenters in the Senate, and the rest of them were zero. They could not get one vote right if their life depended on it. Not even by accident could they get a vote right. Okay, so that's what happened in the Senate. Now we'll take a gander at the House. Now there we've got 100 people in the House. There were 40 in the Senate, 21 Democrats and 19 Republicans. In the House, it's 51 Democrats, 49 Republicans. Of the Republicans in the House, the top Republican, with a pretty good little gap there because he was in all the committees and subcommittees, was A.C. Cordoza. The Democrats put him in these gun committees because they're hoping that somehow his good gun votes would cause him his district. I don't think it will. This is going to shore up his base that's there. He number one, A.C. Cordoza, followed by another fairly young freshman, if you will, Dolores Oates came in second. She's fairly new, and yet she came out swinging. She's number two. Michael Weber, he's always been a perennial excellent vote. Eric Phillips, Tony Wilt, and Amanda Batten are all up there in the House. But as far as 100% goes, it's the vast majority of Republicans are 100%. There are two at 99%. There were three at 98%. There were three at 95% and one at 90%. And then the one that dropped way off for the Republican was Carrie Coiner, who historically has had some problems with her votes. And she was at 62%, which is a big drop. That's like 28% lower than the other lowest Republican. She's all by herself floating down in the middle. But way below her starts the Democrats. Top Democrat, Kelly Corvus Fowler with a 2% vote. They had one, two, three, four, five, six, 2%, one 1%, and all of the rest of the Democrats had zero. Again, they could not vote, not even once, anywhere for any gun bill that would benefit gun owners. And there was
Yeah.
one other odd thing, and that was Danny Marshall. Danny Marshall's a Republican, but he had no votes. He is having health issues,
Yeah.
so he was representing his district, but he wasn't able to really vote. He was, I guess, probably with dealing with hospitals and stuff. But
Mhm.
that's the sorry state of affairs in the General Assembly now. This is why, sadly, I mean, it would benefit all of us if the Democrats and the Republicans were fighting to protect our rights, all of them, especially the right to keep and bear arms. That's the way it should be. A little competition as to who can protect the right.
Mhm.
But now, literally, I can't point at a Democrat and say, this guy, we've got some Democrats that are pro gun. Right now, I have to say every Democrat in the legislature is anti gun.
Mhm.
They just are, all of them. I've,
Right.
I've never seen it quite that bad at all, except for last year and this year.
And,
So,
we are nonpartisan and we don't support people that based on their political party or anything like that. However, we do call out people that are anti rights and praise people that work to protect and advance our rights. And sadly, it goes right along party lines lately. And the Democrats seem to get rid of anybody that votes their conscience instead of voting party lines. So we've seen it repeatedly. They'll primary them right out of a seat.
yeah, oh, yeah, we've watched it over the years. Jill, go ahead.
It always comes down to the funding of those people too, because if some of them, you speak to the constituents in many of those areas, and you speak to them about guns, and they're very pro gun, but what Philip was saying earlier, it all depends on the other things that are on the table. That really they're like, oh, well, we can get rid of the whole gun rights so we can have this, this, and this instead, because that's what the left tends to stand on. That's what they promote. They get their funding from. And if they get enough, I mean, everybody knows about Bloomberg and Soros and how anti-gun they are. If it works for them and they can make some money off of it, that's what they're going to do. They're going to put money behind the candidate that pushes the most anti-gun rhetoric that they possibly can. In this election coming up, that's Abigail Spanberger. She is very anti. I don't care how many times she posts about, oh, I was in the CIA and we went to the gun range every week. I don't care. You are backed by Bloomberg organizations like Moms Demand Action. I think Giffords gave her a big thumbs up too, and Brady. I mean, there's so much that people don't understand nowadays, and that's the sad part because our civil rights were never meant to be politicized like this. But they have found a way to do that, and it's all a money grab. And
Absolutely. And we have
it's just
Cowboy T has commented to please remember that there's a big difference between liberals like him and the leftist Democrats. And that is true.
absolutely,
And
absolutely
so that's why we need all of you to talk to all of your friends, including the liberals, especially the liberals who own guns, and impress upon them that voting for your Second Amendment rights first protects all of the other things that you care about. It gives you the ability to go down and lobby, to worship as you please, to live the lifestyle that you please as long as it doesn't hurt someone else, and to stand up for all of the other issues that you care so much about. Without the Second Amendment, our freedoms will disappear like feathers in the wind. They
Yeah,
will be gone.
I've known Cowboy T for quite a while. He's been quite active in VCDL. He's been at some of the events we've been at, like at universities and stuff, as we were trying to reach out to students at universities so that they understood their rights and stuff. And he
hmm
often goes by California liberal with a gun.
hmm
Um, but yeah, again, and that's why I tend to point out that we're talking about the Democrats in the legislature. And the
right,
problem is, those Democrats in the legislature are not like Cowboy T. If they were like him, and they were that type of a liberal where
right,
they respected civil rights, then we wouldn't be in this boat. In fact, like I've said before, and some people may not have heard this, but when we got Virginia to be a shall issue state, the Democrats controlled the House and the Senate, and they had a Republican governor, just like we have now.
yeah,
Back in 1995, that combination got us one of the most powerful pro gun things that happened in Virginia in a very, very long time, a major thing. And now it is the opposite. Now you can't get the smallest, little, teeniest pro gun bill through either of those bodies. It's just a dramatic change over a period of 30 years. Absolutely
right,
stunning. But it's not by accident. And again, deep inside their soul, some of these legislators may well be on our side of the fence, but they're scared to death to vote against leadership. I think I pointed this out recently. Senator Boysko is way up in leadership. This woman has been part of the Democrat Party and up in Northern Virginia for a very long time. She definitely had very important seniority. And then Senator Surville. He's again Northern Virginia, right at the top of the ranks. Been in there a very long time. But to show you how strict this is, and you don't dare move off of what the leadership wants, Boysko commented about not really wanting to see um, uh, gambling casino go into Fairfax County. Well, that was counter to what Surville wanted. So he took her off every committee. Boom, gone. And this is like a second in command was stripped of everything because she had the gall to actually say that her
yeah,
constituency didn't want a casino. So when you look at that type of that tyrannical atmosphere, that's why when they on the floor, when one of the Democrats holds up a green flag, everybody that's a Democrat better vote yes on the next bill, whatever it is. You better vote, because if you don't, your party's coming after you. So they got everybody terrorized. To me, it doesn't matter. All I know is they're voting wrong, and that's all
Well,
I can go by.
I find that very. I want to. I've without saying any curse words or anything like that. I find that very funny because I know that you and I joked about them. It was like an auction, them auctioning off our rights. But at the same time, it's really sad that means that they don't either know how to stand up for themselves and vote against their party when they truly believe in something, or they just don't know what they're voting for. I mean, if you have to have somebody in the back waving a flag to yes or no for something, that just to me it reminds me of Pavlov's bell, when the dog
No.
comes to the bell. I mean, that is sad. I mean, it just shows how ignorant they are. And they'll do anything. They don't care. They're just like, okay, we have these two guys that have read the bills. They have the little flags in the back, and they're
Now you got me picturing the flag going up and
yeah,
all the Democrats salivating.
Yeah.
right. I mean, if that's just yeah, that's us, that's us, that's us. I mean, I've stood up in the back at my kids' school plays before, and feeling like, yeah, let's do the hand movements, and so that's exactly what that reminds me of. It's very childish. It's very ignorant, and it's just it's almost what I mean. It's very
I will say this much.
be a robot. That's what they want people to do. They want us to be robots to say yes and no, and it's just it's so funny. I mean,
Well, and I'll tell you, we're not alone in this by any means. I talked to my counterparts in other states, and this is going on everywhere. This is not unique to Virginia.
I
And
just
so those people that think they want to flee Virginia and go to some other state, get an apartment because you're going to move a lot. This is going on to some degree everywhere. It's just that in this case, some states don't have Democrats that have control of everything. Here, we're right on the line. We're as purple as you can get. One vote in each body is all that's turned us purple.
hmm
But it's everywhere, and we have to stand up and fight this because we cannot let this destroy our country. We just can't do it.
no, no,
Absolutely. And the elections this year are super critical. Absolutely.
yes.
Even more critical than they were in 2021. But we have a an election for governor. We have Spanberger and Winsome Sears running against each other. Then we have lieutenant governor, who is the tie-breaking vote in the Senate. And then we have the attorney general, who um, handles reciprocity with other
hmm
states and whether or not to fight court cases and things like that. Um, there's no one running in primary against Mieres, but there is a Democrat candidate running for attorney general. So that's going to be an important race also. Then we have the entire House of Delegates. So if the elections go well, then next year we may be able to get some things, make some advancements in the Virginia legislature. But if they go poorly, then 2020 is going to look like a walk in the park,
hmm
Yeah.
because sadly,
Exactly.
the Democrats will cram everything through. All of those bills that the governor vetoed the last 2 years, they will get introduced again, and they will cram a lot of them through.
Spanberger
So,
is Northam 2.0. I mean,
and
Yeah.
and she's already said, as a matter of fact, there was an article that came out yesterday or the day before, a
hmm
headline saying that if she's presented gun bills, gun bans, that she will sign them. She will
yes,
sign a assault weapon ban.
she's
Um,
she's also very big with mag, extended mags. You can
mhm.
only have so many in your, to carry. If it were her, everybody would have three.
Well,
So,
Bloomberg's backing the Democrats that are running for higher office. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
he likes her. He likes the person who wants to run for an attorney general. While Miares hasn't done much for us when it comes to he's busy defending unconstitutional laws. The Democrat who is completely anti-gun would be much worse than what Miara's has not
Right.
done some of the things that Herring did, for example, and then other
Right.
things he did Herring would have done. So, but it's a mixed bag. But when you look at the governor's race, Winsome Sears, she's only had two opportunities to cast a vote. Keep in mind the only time that she gets to cast a vote as lieutenant governor is if there's a tie in the Senate. And there
Hmm.
were two ties. Both of them were on gun control, and both times um, she voted correctly and broke the tie. The Democrats immediately called for a reconsideration of the vote, and then they broke the tie on their side so they could then try to push through the gun control that she had knocked down. But she voted correctly on the two opportunities she had. So in that sense, she would have a 100% voting record. But as lieutenant governor, they don't get to vote very often. But if they do, it can be critical. So you want somebody good in that position.
Really.
Absolutely. So we need Democrat voters in Democrat districts to contact their senators, their delegates, the Democrat Party, get active and let them know that the gun control issue is a third rail topic. If
Hmm.
they're going to push gun control, they're going to lose the votes.
Yep.
And yeah, the other issues, whatever other issues that you care about, you let them know on that as well. But standing up for the Second Amendment right, I can't say it enough. It's the one right that protects all the other rights, and we need to give it the the attention and the priority that it deserves. So let's see. Yeah, Michael Dalton says a personal observation is that guns and abortion issues rank higher than anything. Yes, but we have to make that guns issue
Number one.
rank high as a um, something that needs to be defended. The right to keep and bear arms is a high priority, must be defended on both sides of the aisle. So make it that third rail for both parties. And Sean Kennedy asked if when some Sears has filled out the VCDL survey yet. The surveys have not gone out yet. They're in their final stages. They will be going out very soon. So once the survey results start coming in, they'll be posted on the website. The grades will be posted on the website, and the pack will start sending out emails with survey grades. So we're hoping to start getting results, responses in before the primaries come up.
It's very imperative that we start educating a lot of folks now more than we have been just within social media. Anytime I go out and I speak to people, it's in my area. I'm down here in Danville in Pittsylvania County. There are so many people that are just they have no earthly idea what's going on. they, I've spoken to so many people that don't even know that we are about to have elections. They don't know who their people are, who their legislators are. They don't know
Mhm.
what the bills are, that we've just, especially with Youngkin veto and all of the gun bills, the anti-gun bills. They didn't even know about that. So it is very imperative. I spoke to one lady the other day that didn't even know who Winsome Sears was. So it's very imperative that we get out there and we start educating folks, doing our own research too on everybody that's coming up. I mean, it's just very this is a big one, and I really do not want to relive the Northrum days. I
No.
really do
Did
not.
did
Yeah.
that did that lady know who Spanberger was?
No, she didn't know who she knew who Youngkin was. She knew who Northrum was. She did not know who Jason Mieres is. She did not know who Winsome Sears was. She didn't know who Spanberger was. She knew who Bloomberg was. And I kindly explained to her what Bloomberg does in these types of, legislative situations. And
Mhm.
just with my experience and she she was mind blown. I don't know which way she's going to swing as far as politically in this whole thing, but at the same time, because I am a single issue voter myself, I care less what somebody's actual right, left, center, whatever. But at the same time, I'm explaining to her, the money is coming and funneled in from a certain left wing in these situations, and if she cared about her rights at all, she would vote correctly. So,
Right.
but I mean, at the same time, I educating these folks and getting out there and saying, hey, not necessarily in a derogatory way towards the candidate that you don't like, but letting people know that this is their background. Spamberger is a prop, and I say that from personal experience, um, dealing with her and Mom's Demand Action. She's a prop for Bloomberg to get in there and swindle his money in, and then funnel it and all that good stuff, and make more off of more gun control, and especially in Virginia. And we are a hot state. I mean, we're close to DC. It's just easy because we have a lot of people that live in Northern Virginia that work in DC, so it's just that puzzle piece that they need. But if we can swing it back our way,
Right.
and
One of the things
staying
we got
strong.
one of the things we've got to watch is, again, I think a lot of times people are looking for any reason to be complacent. Well, we really don't need to worry. Now we're safe. They're always looking for that safe thing so they don't have to get off their butts and actually do something. And part of that problem is going to be that Trump won, and he's doing some good things.
Yeah,
He's got some stuff rolling that's incredible. But a lot of people are going to look at that and say, well, we got Trump. We're protected. And they
no,
don't realize that most gun control, the worst gun control, tends to be at the state level. The federal
exactly.
government isn't always the worst by any means. Again, like I tell people, okay, try to open carry in Maryland and see what happens to you. That's not federal law. That's Maryland state law.
Yeah,
Um,
The
and
other thing is that the gun control happens when you feel like you're safe and you let your guard down.
yes,
So,
yes.
couple of things. Sean Kennedy, he's one of our gun show coordinators, by the way, and um, he sent me an email today asking a question that he was asked at one of the gun shows. And Susan Brush, one of our board members, is on here, and she says that not enough people know about VCDL. So this is a perfect opportunity to share this information with you guys. And when you go out and talk to people about VCDL and how to get active, because a government by the people, of the people, and for the people is only that way if the people get
Hmm.
active. And part of that is joining VCDL so that we can all work together and get things done. But Sean asked a question. He said, that someone asked him where the money goes when you join VCDL or when you contribute to VCDL. What do we do with that money? And I thank him for sending that question, because a lot of people don't know. Well, you can look up our 990 and see exactly where the money goes. But organizations like Mom's Demand and all of that, they have Bloomberg and
Hmm.
other deep pocket donors, and they have high overhead expenses. They pay people to attend their rallies and so on and so forth. With us, the split goes 8% of our what we take in. 8%, single digit, is spent on administrative expenses. 2% is spent on fundraising. The other 90% of what we take in goes to defending your rights here in Virginia, not in California, not in New York, right here in Virginia. We do participate in some federal lawsuits when it benefits Virginia gun owners, but we look good and hard at how we spend the money and where it goes to make sure that you guys are getting the most bang for your buck. And it has real implications, real impact right here in Virginia. So that's something that when you talk to your friends and your neighbors, and they want to know, well, how can I get involved? Join VCDL. It's only $25 a year. That's less than a pizza. So One pizza a year can help you protect your right to keep and bear arms right here in Virginia.
And the more members we've got, the more clout we have. I mean, that's just
Absolutely.
the bottom line. If we had 10 members, that would be one thing. If we had a million, that would be another. It does matter.
It
Um,
does.
I see Gabriel is saying that, reminding us that Thursday, April 17th, it's the 250th anniversary of the shot heard around the world. This was
Mhm.
something I put in an alert recently, that we don't want to have to go through that again, where the government's showing up to take our guns, and then now it's a shooting war to stop tyrants. So that's why it's so important that we never give a chance for anything like that to happen in America. That we keep our freedoms, and we keep the country the way it should be. By the way, before I get too sidetracked, I do wanted to wrap up on this uh, voting record thing. I kind of went off the track. Um, if you get the voting record, let's say you've got Carrie Coiner, and you're going, "Oh my God, why did she get 62%?" Well, towards the back of the document, this document's hundreds of pages. It's a PDF. It's not really meant to be entirely printed out. It's meant to be on your computer so you can search it and find what you want. But every single legislator is in the back of this, and every single vote that they did is listed on the for that legislator, and the bills are in numerical order. So you can see that somebody voted for, let's see, SB 891, and they twice they voted and got -2, which means that's an anti-gun vote. This is Senator Ayer, and she's very anti-gun, so virtually everything she's got is negative. But what you can do is, if you see a bill and you're going, well, okay, so if you say Carrie Coiner, you say, what bill did she vote wrong on? You see a negative vote. What you can do now, which is new, I put in this year, at the very back are all the bills with a brief summary. That way you can say, okay, well, what did SB 881 do? You can go to the back, you can see what it is, and see a write up. If it's coded red, then that is an anti-gun bill. If it's coded blue, it's a pro-gun bill, and with the description. So everything you need to know if you're trying to figure out how your legislator did, especially if they've got some bad votes, or maybe you've got a Democrat representing you and they got 2%. So you want to find out where they voted correctly. You can actually look it up fairly easily just in this one document. So that's all I had on that. But it's an important one if you kind of want to keep tabs on who's representing you.
They have if they have 2% in the pro gun category, then you need to send them a thank you card.
2% of a thank you card.
Yeah, just a teeny weeny
A
one.
quarter.
Thanks. Big
Yeah.
thanks.
So I see BT saying he asked to help in 2020 and it said his help was not needed. Shoot us an email and let us know where you can volunteer, BT. We'll be happy to find something for you to do somewhere. Um, absolutely. So 2020 was kind of a special case. We were drinking from several fire hoses at once in 2020. Um,
Yeah, I remember well.
I don't know if any of you have ever arranged an event or even a birthday party for that matter, or a formal dinner, but we put together a rally that held over 50,000 people in less than 2 months. And you want to talk about working miracles? That was working miracles. And in all of that, putting together all of the details for the 2020 lobby day, every time we got something arranged, the state administration would move the goalposts and say, okay, well, now you can't do it this way, you got to do it that way, or now we have this extra thing that you have to do. So, I mean, it was
They
a
tried to
harrowing
shut us down.
experience. They absolutely did, and could not. But
No.
and they tried to cause a riot, which they did not. So um, we were working under extreme adverse conditions, and sometimes we just had to kind of go with the flow and couldn't. necessarily accommodate all of the volunteers that we had, but we can use volunteers now. So,
They
um,
grossly underestimated the people that are part of this movement. They
right.
really did. They had no idea who we were, how determined we were, and what good people we were. We are not the problem at all. We're the solution most of the time. So that was
Absolutely.
a great
So,
underestimation.
Philip, when you were talking about the voting record, did you go over how the votes are tallied? As in, if you submit a bill, you get a point. If you're on a committee that you get a vote on the bill, you get a
Sure.
point, that sort of thing?
Yeah, let me go over that. Basically, that is, by the way, written up in the document. It's just after the actual scores comes a write up about how we do the grading, so that everybody's aware. But basically, we rate a bill as either very pro gun, neutral, which we don't really, just more or less ignore the neutral ones, anti-gun, very anti-gun. So if you vote for a very anti-gun bill, you get a -2. If you vote for a very pro-gun bill, you get a 2. So positive number is good, negative number is bad. If you vote for just a pro-gun bill, but not very pro-gun, then it's 1 point and 1.4, 1 point against if you vote against it, and so forth. Um, and so but again, to encourage and give credit for people, for example, if somebody puts in a pro-gun bill, as the person that's introducing it, we give them credit for that bill as well, as if they voted for it. They get credit as if like an extra vote. If they put in an anti-gun bill, then they get the negative credit just for putting it in. Then um, also, if the bill is put in at our request, if they're doing it because I contacted them and they said, yeah, I'll put that bill in for you, then they get another bonus set of points. Again, another vote, if you will, for introducing that bill for our organization. Again, to thank them and encourage them to do that for us. And again, we don't have a counter for that one because, but that's how that goes. And now we also rate the speaker because in the past, especially with Republican speakers, we had them playing games in the past. The speaker has got a tremendous amount of control. He is the most powerful speaker in America, is the Virginia speaker, the way our General Assembly set up. Nobody else has got as much power as our speakers do in Virginia. So they can kill a bill by doing pocket vetoes where they got the bill, but it never comes up in committee. It just sits, never goes anywhere. But when that happens, if it's a pro-gun bill, the speaker gets hit with a negative vote. If it's an anti-gun bill, actually, we're happy if he does that. So we give him a pro-gun vote if he pocket vetoes a gun control bill. But we try to be fair too. If a pro-gun bill makes it all the way to the floor, gets through all the committees and gets a vote, we give the speaker credit for that pro-gun bill, no matter how the vote turns out. He gets credit for making sure that it made it to the floor. And again, same thing with gun control. If a gun control bill makes it to the floor, then the speaker gets tabbed on that one for having allowed that to happen. So we try to be fair, to the speaker. But it definitely changes things. Pocket vetoes cost the speaker greatly. The Speaker Gilbert, who had 100% perfect voting record for years, when he became speaker, he did a series of pocket vetoes. And it knocked him down like 20 points because we docked him for each one of those pocket vetoes he did on pro gun stuff. The next year, he didn't do nearly as many of those, and his score was much higher up. But so he went from 100% and dropped. So all of that's calculated, and there is a description of how we do that. We try to be fair with this, and so that what we're showing is something you can kind of count on as being reasonable.
Yeah. So, um, Bruce Jackson, another one of our board members and our stuff guy, mentioned that we should point out where they told us to put the porta johns on the 2020 lobby day, which was poetic justice because they told us to put them in front of the Attorney General's office.
Yeah, Herring, an anti-gun Herring's office.
Yes, yes.
I'd like to
So
put him in his office, quite
uh,
frankly.
That would have been funny.
I think they moved him at the last minute, but we were getting a chuckle out of that. Uh,
But then, yeah, they kept moving the goalposts.
mhm.
Finally, I think were we allowed to have one? No, we had no porta potties in the fenced-in area, or did we have one? I guess it was none, right? They wouldn't
None.
let
One.
You
none
had to leave the
Yeah.
cage and go back through security to get in, if you could even get in.
again. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, that
So
that line was
yeah.
long.
it
That was
was.
really dirty pool, and that, again, that's what
It,
happens when you've got the gun controllers in charge. I was Northam,
yes.
making sure all that stuff happened because we got
Yep.
some of the same people working for the Department of General Services. It's in charge of that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
and they haven't been playing those kind of games since we've had Yunkin in there. Well, they're the employee of the governor. They kind of have to do what he says. That's their boss.
Hmm.
And so, but it was that. I don't want to go through that again, guys. We need to vote in November. Let's
Yeah.
not do that again. That was no fun.
It was no fun.
It was.
And the governor is the one that sets the rules for the grounds in Capitol Square. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's we need to everybody reach out to all of your friends and your neighbors and your coworkers and whomever will listen, and even those who won't listen. And if you have um, friends and family that are gun owners and care about their Second Amendment rights, but they only vote in presidential elections, drag them to the polls in November. Eh, Get them there to vote. If you have friends and that are not registered to vote, if they care about their Second Amendment rights, it's easy to register. You can do it online.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Well, one thing you can do as well, which is fairly new, again, some of us kind of think there should be one day to vote, but that's not the way it is now. But we should take advantage of it then. If that they've changed the law, then we should take advantage of everything that's out there and not let the other side have all the advantages to what they've done. We can take their own changes and throw it back at them. One of the things you can do is get people signed up to be to vote at home absentee every year. The
Hmm.
ballot shows up in the mail. They don't have to get off their butt. They can fill it out sitting there on their easy chair and drop it. They do have to walk to the mailbox, but they walk to the mailbox and drop it in, and they vote it.
Right.
Am I thrilled with that? No, but it's there. We're stupid if
Mhm.
we don't use it. And some people might actually do that if they knew it was that simple. It was going to arrive in the mail every year. They fill it out, put it in the mailbox, and they're done. Well, that's better than nothing. And
Yeah.
so you might look at that, especially somebody you think that might be conducive to that. Point out that they can do that, and you can go up on the website that the state board of elections has and set that up.
Yep. All right, guys, we've been on here for an hour. Is there anything else that you need to cover, Philip? We do need to mention the in-person meeting is coming up this coming Thursday.
I think it is. Yeah,
Yep. And it's in Midlothian at which library?
that's the Midlothian Library. It's the same one it's been at now. This would be like the third time we've held it there. It's the Midlothian
Okay.
Library. Um, and
So,
so, yep, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, be sure to come out to that live meeting.
and then next month we'll be at XCal, and the following month we'll be in Charlottesville, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I'm waiting for final confirmation. That one won't be on a Thursday though. I think that one's going to end up being on a Tuesday, but
okay.
that's a couple months out. So we'll let everybody know when that happens. And unfortunately, Evan Todd just wasn't able to get in. So
Yes.
maybe we'll have him back at some future date. I was going to tell him, I did some very advanced training in West Virginia where we were in a decommissioned school.
Hmm.
And that training, the various people in the class would take turns being the armed individual and disarmed individual. And they had one where they had somebody with an AK which fired blanks, but in that big school building, And I was one of the people for that scenario that was unarmed, and that was one hell of a feeling. Hearing you couldn't even tell what direction the gunshots were coming from because of the echo. You had no idea. They were getting louder. I had nothing. All I could do was hide in the closet. Let me tell you, that was no fun. And it just more emphasized how important it is that people be able to protect themselves.
Right.
Because I had nothing, and that was not. Even though it was just a scenario, it felt real enough, and I can only imagine. So I'd love to have heard his story on this stuff, but
Right.
maybe we'll have better luck next time with it. So
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but we will work something out and get him on here. I apologize for those of you who tuned in specifically to chat with Evan, but his story is very powerful, and I will work with him to get him on here again. But at any rate, I do want to thank you all for tuning in, especially those of you who have stayed with us for the full hour. And we appreciate all of your comments, and I hope you will share this with others. Do all the things, click the buttons, ding the bells, all of those things. And we will see you next month on the second Sunday of the month at 8 p.m. And I hope to see some of you in Midlothian
yeah, if
this,
you're in
this
Central
coming
Virginia, come out to
Thursday.
Midlothian. Yeah, it's a
Yes.
nice library. We got a big room, and carry's
Yep.
legal there, so you don't have to leave your gun in the car. Bring it with you.
Yep. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the next one.
Good
Night
night.
night.
Bye.